Good morning, Bitcoiners. This is Daniel from the Bitcoin Citadel, day 48 of Citadel Summer. And today I wanted to talk about kind of my mission here this summer. Now, you guys know, if you've been watching my videos, this Citadel Summer is about me posting a video to my channel every day. So learning how to be a creator, trying to become a better creator and communicator. Me and a bunch of folks started the Bitcoin Citadel at the Bitcoin conference this year in Vegas. That's when we launched. And I'm retiring from my fiat wage slave job next year. So this is all about starting that transition to launch the new company and to just get my reps in and learn how to be a creator on YouTube and on X and on Rumble. And Noster's not working out for me that well. I gotta try getting back on the horse there. But that's where I am today. So day 48, Citadel Summer. And today's episode is called Give. No, it's not. I was going to call it Give a Man a Fish, but I decided to call it Teach a Man to Fish. And I was thinking about that saying this morning when I was trying to put together my topic and the way I remember it. Oh, can you hear the loon in the background? That's cool. This is Loon Lake out here. The way I remember it is give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. And I was like, I wonder where that comes from. That's got to be from the Bible or something, or some kind of nugget of ancient wisdom. And it turns out I used my friend perplexity.ai, use your AI of choice, right, to give me some information about that. And it turns out that it was actually from a book that was written by a British woman fairly recently in the 19th century, Anne Thackeray. What's her name? I can't remember. I just looked it up this morning. Here I am. I can't remember it. But the original quote was, give a man a fish and he will be hungry again in an hour. Teach a man to catch a fish and you do him a good turn. And I like that. That's kind of cool, huh? Give a man a fish and he will be hungry again in an hour. Teach a man to catch a fish and you do him a good turn, right? So my mission with Bitcoiners is there's two things really, is to teach a man or a woman to catch a fish. Because I come from a world of education. My wife has been a teacher for a long time, right? She doesn't do it anymore. She stopped in 2020. You know what happened in 2020, and she stopped working in public schools then as a teacher, right? For a long time, I've had a very varied career, done all kinds of things. But beginning in the 90s, right, so a long time ago, I started to work in IT, but I wasn't working in IT as an IT person. I've actually worked on help desks and done all that stuff. But my original thing that I did was I became, I did work in IT originally. So I did a whole bunch of things. I wound up being a claims adjuster in the 90s, like the early 90s. And then I was like, this is for the birds. And at work, I sat near the printer and I wasn't scared of computers. This is back when we had the old green DMV screen computers. They weren't even computers. They were just terminals, right? And we were rolling out Windows computers for the first time. I was there for the big Windows 95 uplift, right? I was there for Y2K, it was that time, right? Anyway, I sat near the computer. I wasn't afraid of it. The printer would not work a lot. I would help people to print stuff. I would help people with their computers. We didn't have an IT person in our office. And me and another buddy of mine decided that being a claims adjuster sucked, which it does. And I liked it because I helped people. That was my thing that I liked about it. And my insurance company, the one that I worked for, really was a good one. They still had good ones back then. We weren't in late stage fiat then, right? We were kind of approaching it. But he and I decided this is for the birds. We didn't want to do that. So back then, you could take, I'm sure you can do it now too, classes to learn how to be a Microsoft certified system engineer or a Cisco certified system engineer or Novell networks. That was a networking protocol we used back then too. And you could take classes for that and then take tests and get a certification so that you could move into that field and work in that field. And that's what we decided to do. We decided that we were going to take those classes after work and we were going to try to change lanes in our careers. And we did. So I left that claims adjuster job and I got on a help desk at a big company. And I worked my way up. And then, what was it? I'd only worked, on the help desk in that company for probably about a year, right? And the guy who owned the training center where I took a lot of my classes emailed me and he said, "Hey, Dan, I want you to come and work for me and to teach people how to be Microsoft Certified System Engineers, MCSEs." There's a whole training program that I had just taken a year before. And he really liked me and he thought I would do a good job as an instructor. And I was like, I wanted to be in networking and I was just about to get promoted to the networking team at the corporation I was working for. So I was really kind of on the fence about it, but then I decided, you know what, I want to do it. So I did it. I took the jump. I took a chance and I did it. So for many years, I was a trainer, a teacher, an educator. And I really liked that. I love to get up in front of people and to, you go through there's a whole slide deck you do and you help people with the hands-on exercises. And that combination of lecture and lab together in a very compressed format. Like you'd go for a week and you'd learn what you would learn in college, in a college class, in a whole semester, right? I really like that format. And we started to do, we didn't start to do that. My wife and I decided, in 2000, right as the dot-com bubble was about to burst, we both were educators. She was a teacher in public school and I was teaching at this technical training company. And we both decided, we lived in California at that time, and we decided, hey, we don't want to live in California. We want to start a family. We want to get our own place. Buy a house, right? And even back then, houses were ridiculously overpriced in California, right? I love California, by the way. I love the California that I knew from the early 80s through 2000, I love it. I love everything about California except for the politics of it, really. So we go back from California, drive across country. We land where we are now in this beautiful part of the world, Northeast United States, right near the Canadian border. And we love it, right? Neither one of us has a job, right? Because back then, it was before the bubble burst. We were very optimistic and confident. And fortunately for us, she got a job working. She started as an assistant in a school, and then she got her job as a teacher, right? And she worked for many, many, many years as a public school teacher here, in my town, right? So that was awesome. We bought a house. We had a family. We did all those things. But what I was doing is I originally started teaching Microsoft classes on my own. I had my own little business. And I was making really good money. Back then you could. And then the window started to close. There was too many people that were coming in. The quality of the education was kind of coming down. It was harder and harder to find gigs. So I took a job for a training company, right? And I taught Microsoft classes for many, many years. I loved it because we got feedback from our students at the very end of each class. If you didn't do a good job, no one would hire you. You'd be out on your ass. So it really was a meritocracy in those days. for teaching those classes. And I did a really good job. We call them smile sheets. And I always got good smile sheets. And I'd hear back from my students, that they had made the career change. A lot of them were truck drivers or, people who used to work in industrial jobs, people who were career changers who wanted to do what I did and launch into this new area of IT. And a lot of them were successful at it, and that was awesome. I eventually got tired of teaching and I wanted to do again. So I started a career in IT, many years ago, and I've been doing that ever since. But I never lost my love of teaching, of learning and teaching. Fast forward, 2019. I'm thinking about retirement, even 2019, because I'm retiring, next year. So I'm trying to plan my thing, right? I've always been interested in health. And if you've watched my channel, what I think about Bitcoiners is they pull back the curtain on some bullshit story. Sorry, kid show. Some story that they know isn't right. That's a seagull. And for me, the story was about health because my dad died when I was really young, and he died of something that I think, we call it, is it mainstream medicine, allopathic medicine, the system that we have now. Even back then in the mid 60s, the cracks were starting to show, right? So for me, it was health and the BS around how people can be healthy that that was what was my entry point into seeing that the system, not trusting the system. So I didn't trust that part of it from an early age. I didn't know anything about finance, though. I know now, I've been studying it pretty intensely for 5 years. Even before I was a Bitcoiner, my wife challenged me and said, what are we going to do when we retire? And that was the impetus for me, in 2019 to take a health coaching class, because I thought, hey, I have all this knowledge about alternative healthcare, and this was kind of an alternative healthcare coaching program. I said, I'd like to help people, kind of work through this journey that I've been on. I'm in my mid 60s. I look pretty good, I'm in pretty good health. My wife is younger than me, so I was like, I have to stay healthy. We didn't have kids right away, so I want to be healthy when my son, is old enough to have a family. I want to enjoy that. That was one of my goals, and I've worked toward that for many, many years. This health coaching program is part of that program too, part of that plan, part of that. I've prepared myself for this, I felt like, my whole life. So I did that. And that's when the events of 2020 came down. And this was supposed to be an alternative health program, but the leader of the program immediately bought into this whole BS narrative about what was happening, right? And I was already skeptical about, the healthcare stories that we were hearing from a long time, and actually was skeptical about a lot of things. That kind of opened the door for me. I was like, this has the earmarks of the same kind of BS that we've been fed on a lot of topics, right? So I didn't buy it. The PSYOP was so great that the amount of information, the fear that was entered into the field was so great that it was hard to resist. But I found a buddy of mine in that program, and we actually were in this, the way that this worked, it was actually a really good program. Technically the way they did it was really good because they had hands-on coaching that you had to do, right? And they put you in small groups and you role played with them, and then you actually had to find a client and you had to actually coach them and submit a video of your coaching of them. So I met this dude, I'll call him Professor Wright, and he and I were friends, and we had a call every single week for the class, and we just kept on doing that. And he was the guy. I was curious about Bitcoin, but he was the guy he was a financial advisor who was trying to transition to become a health coach, and he was the guy who really opened my eyes to Bitcoin. Because I'd known about it since the very beginning. I was on Slashdot, early days, right? Way back, and I was into, cypherpunks. I read Neil Stephenson before Bitcoin. So I understood some of the stuff that was behind Bitcoin, the groundswell of Bitcoin, the stuff that Satoshi and Hal Finney and Adam Back and all those guys, the things that were kind of rising them up and driving them forward. I understood, I knew who Whitfield Diffie was. I understood cryptography, right? But I didn't get Bitcoin. And it wasn't until my friend Professor Wright kind of orange pilled me. You know, that's the way to look at it. And I dove in with both feet. And I started to develop my conviction, started to develop it, that I started my Bitcoin journey. Actually, what put me over the top and really opened my eyes and got me going was when I found out Jack Kruse really resonated with me at that time. And he bought the bullshit of COVID. Sorry, kid show. In the beginning, he says he didn't now, but he did, but he's a very, very good analytical thinker, and he didn't buy it for long, and he's been right about a lot of things. And I love the quantum biology approach that he has with sunlight. I used to be into Bulletproof Dave. You remember him with Bulletproof Coffee and all the supplements, and Ray Kurzweil, and you take enough supplements. And now I realize that that's not necessary, right? Getting out, here's the sun, it's rising right now. Get out for sunrise every morning, ground, be outside as much as possible. If you're really sick, move toward the equator. I went hardcore. I didn't see a doctor for many, many years. Now I have an acupuncturist that I love and I really trust. And he's into Chinese herbal medicine and acupuncture, but he's into all kinds of stuff. He's always looking for ways that he can help his clients, his patients, right? And I think that having an ally like that is really important for someone who's my age, especially. But the point is, Jack Kruse brought the health and the Bitcoin together for me, and that's when I started to really develop conviction. That's when I moved some of my portfolio into Bitcoin, and that's when I started my really deep dive down the rabbit hole and started my, way more than 10,000 hours of study that I've done now, right? That's how I became obsessed with Bitcoin. No more sports on TV. I left a lot of things behind when I moved into Bitcoin, and I don't regret it at all. That's when I got the hope, not hopium, which is what, the mainstream offers people, but actually, Bitcoin, gave me, I always, thought that being an optimist was the thing that a smart person cultivated. That's what you wanted to be, was optimistic. It's beneficial for you in so many ways. And Bitcoin is a way that you can be an optimist and not a Pollyanna, right? It's a real boots on the ground kind of optimism that you can get with Bitcoin. So here I am. One more thing about coaching. So I took this coaching program, and I've always been a troubleshooter and an educator, and I help people I used to help people to fix stuff and to learn stuff and that kind of thing. So I'm always I'm like the sage on the stage. That's what I was, And I went into this coaching program thinking that I would be able to take advantage of that, and I was well prepared to be a coach, right? Well, little did I realize that what coaching is it's having a conversation with people and helping them to make the change that they already know they want to make, and they know the steps that they should be taking for the most part, right? And a coaching conversation isn't me telling you what to do. It's you knowing what to do and me helping you to work in that direction. And I learned all that stuff in the program. So I don't regret it. I met my friend, Professor Wright. I launched into Bitcoin, and I learned this how to have a coaching conversation with people, really by hands-on, by doing it, right? And by having clients in the early days that I helped a lot, and they really thought I did a good job. It was really validating for me. But I had a bad taste in my mouth about it after the events of 2020 and, the next few years. So I gave up the health coaching practice. But here I am now. I'm ready to retire, and I am starting a Bitcoin education. I'm calling myself a Bitcoin educator and coach. And really what I want to do is, we have on our website, bitcoincitadel.net, we have a lot of really good offerings. We have a ton of good information. I always like to think of the difference between data and information. Data is, the raw data is just, bits of, it's not, information is organized data, right? Data is the raw data, just what's floating around in the field, right? Information is when you organize that data into a coherent system, right? So converting raw data into information and being able to present that is what a good teacher can do, right? That's what a teacher does. And that's why it's very hard for people to self-educate. Some people can, right? But the reason people go to a Harvard, or what it should be, is because there's educators there that can help them take this raw data of experience, right, and convert it into information and educate them, right? And also to meet, if you're at Harvard, you want to meet your cronies, right? You want to meet the rich people. You want to get in line for nepotism and cronyism, but that's another story. So converting raw data into information. Now we have AIs. I use Perplexity AI all the time, and I'm going to move into Maple AI, which is a privacy-oriented Bitcoin AI. I haven't done it yet, but that's my goal, right? So we have AIs that can do a lot of that. They can convert this data into information. The problem with AIs is they hallucinate, right? So you do need to have some kind of filter, right? You need a BS filter when you work with an AI. But for specific technical questions, you can get really good information out of an AI like Perplexity AI, right? So for me, the technical part, the educator part, I really like. But what I want to educate people and who come to me and book calls with me is how to use Perplexity AI, how to know enough that you can use an AI to help you do those kinds of things that you need to do technically to be a successful Bitcoiner. What I really am interested in, if you book a call with me, link in the description, I'm more interested in the coaching piece, because you know what you want to do. You know your Bitcoin or origin story. You know where you want to be. And one of the things that's about coaching is, what I like to do is have people get a really good idea of where they want to be, let's just say in 5 years, and really, envision that as if it is your current lived experience. That's one of the things that coaches can help you do. Very specific. You don't want to have a vision board with a million things on it, right? A very specific lived experience that you're trying to achieve. It actually, as a matter of fact, you have to convince yourself that you're already there, right? And what are the actions that you need to do to get there, to move in that direction, right? That's what I try to do with my clients. And I don't, unless they want me to, I don't even give them information, about how to do something. It doesn't matter what I've done, right? You need to learn how to do it. Hence, rolling back to the very beginning. If you teach a man to fish, right, you do him a good turn. Give a man a fish, and he will be hungry again in an hour. Teach a man to fish, and you do him a good turn. And I want to do you a good turn, but the fish I want to teach you how to catch is how to use AI on your own, how to learn about Bitcoin through videos, through books, through joining a community of fellow Bitcoiners and aspiring Bitcoiners, right? To get that information. Jerry says 100 hours. I heard Jor say 100 hours recently. It's really more than that. Malcolm Gladwell says 10,000 hours, right? Somewhere in there. You got to build up your chops. You got to learn about Bitcoin as a money, and that means you got to learn about money in general, and you got to learn, there's a lot to learn if you really want to have real conviction, right? What I bring to the table for you, if you want to book a call with me, a free call, so we can do a vibe check, and you can see if you want to work with me, is these coaching conversations about how you're going to get from where you are now in the fiat world, or maybe you have Bitcoin, right? But you're not a self-sovereign Bitcoiner yet. You don't have it in self-custody. You don't know how to go down that path, but you know you want it, right? You don't want to be one of those people who's eating rice and bugs, right? You want to be able to afford the finer things in life. You don't want to be on a UBI in a few years, right? That's really why we're here, right? Sovereignty. So that's what I am now. I'm a sovereignty coach. That's what I do, right? And if you want to talk to me, I'm available. I'm still available. I have, I've been getting more and more calls, and I'm super psyched about it. But I got to train myself, because everybody comes on the call and they want me to tell them exactly what to do. They want me to say, Dan, tell me what to do. And that's not my deal, man. My deal is I'm going to, help you to decide what's right for you, what you want to do, right? So that's the difference. And that was a rant. That's one of my longer ones, I think. Oh, my goodness. I just went off on that one. Anyway, tomorrow, Simulation Sunday, my favorite day of the week. Some people like it. I've got some feedback. Some people not as interested in it. Just don't watch on Sunday if you don't like that stuff, right? I always try to keep it on Sunday, because that's when I go a little. I go a little outside of the Bitcoin content, right, and into the simulation content. It always ties back a little bit, but tomorrow, Simulation Sunday, and I have a good one. I think I have a good one for tomorrow, Simulation Sunday. I'll see you then. Peace.